This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Today's episode of the Motor City Sports Rant is brought to you by Score, a new mobile app coming soon. Score is an interactive game that lets users win deals at bars and restaurants based on what's going on in live sporting events. Find new places to watch the game and save money on your bill at the same time by taking advantage of Score's unique interactive specials that give you an additional stake in the action. A Score special can be anything a location wants it to be, from 10% off an item if a team scores a touchdown to a free round of drinks if the quarterback throws for 400 yards. Any stat can be turned into a game. Pick the deals you want to win, watch the games you want to watch, and score deals in real time. The app will update when your teams or players record a relevant stat. When the conditions of your deals are met, coupons are sent to your device to show to your server or bartender. It's that easy. Score is coming to the App Store and Google Play very soon. For more information, check them out on the web at score-app.io and follow them on Twitter and Instagram at ScoreDeals. Score. Watch games. Score deals.
Detroit is the greatest! Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Back to Neiman in front of him. McCarthy draws. McCarthy in. McCarthy scores! He makes it go! Down McCarthy!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone. Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Motor City Sports Rant, Detroit Sports Podcast Network. It's another episode. I am your host, Jason Jarvie. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvie the King. And with me, as always, John, the Doc, Macaroon running the board, running all the dumb sound drops that he has in there. And we're gonna talk a little bit about sports. John,
Always enjoy the conversation. Looking forward to breaking down the Lions. And we have to talk about what the hell happened in Columbus. Michigan State went on the road with everything to play for. They had control of their own destiny, and they took a big shit all over the football field.
they had control of their own destiny, but they were playing with house money at this point.
Oh, we'll talk about that. The whole house money concept, we'll talk about that in the second half of the podcast. How angry should Michigan State supporters be with that football team? Because that performance is not one that should be indicative of this program. And to go out there and to play like that, we got to talk about it because I think a lot of people have a lot of strong emotions, and we do have to keep things in perspective. But when we talk about it, I think there's a chance there might be some anger.
I know, and probably just to give a little preview, it'll probably be John overreacting and being angry and me being the voice of reason.
Oh, okay. But let's start with some positivity. Okay, the Lions sitting here today are 5-4. Now, the performance versus the Browns, many people are looking at it and going, look, survive in advance. Just go out there, play a team like the Browns, who had everything to gain, nothing to lose. A team that hasn't won anything. No wins at this point in the season. The Lions had it all to lose. I mean, if they would have lost that football game, you would have been talking today about possibly replacing Jim Caldwell, the embarrassment of losing to a team that has 0 wins. But you were able to advance, and that's the starting point, is that, look, you're 5-4, you won by 14, you were able to handle your business, and that's a good thing to start.
Definitely, it's a good thing to start. I was so confident in this team that Sunday morning, I'm sitting there talking with my wife, we're hanging out with her little baby, and I'm like, I kind of want to do something this Sunday. And she's like, you want to watch the Lions game? And I'm like, I kind of actually want to go see a movie. And I went and saw Thor. I went to the 11:45 showing. I'm like, Lions are playing the Browns. They got this in the bag. It may still be a close game, but there's no chance that they're going to lose this game. So I watched the movie. I thoroughly enjoyed the Thor Ragnarok. I'm looking forward to Black Panther first, and then the first Infinity War movie. But I come out, and they have the bar in the movie theater, and they're playing the Lions game, and I see, was it 17-17 at that point? And I just shake my head. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
That was the reaction of a lot of people. That was my early reaction. If you followed along on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, my initial reaction was, seriously? You let the Browns get out to a 10-0 lead? That's one of the big talking points is, why is it that the Lions are so slow to come out of the gate and perform. I mean,
we made Deshaun Kaiser look like he was back in Notre Dame taking on Michigan State.
The first couple offensive plays were all negative plays, and then Stafford has, a really inexcusable interception. He's just trying to throw the ball away, and it ends up in a Cleveland defender's hand, and it results in a score. So that's the talking point. That's one of the things that's pissing people off, is that why can't the Lions, at the jump, when the game's on and it's time to go, why are they so slow to start all these football games out? I don't understand.
I don't get why we play down to these teams, or why we only have one. Like you might be good for one drive in that first half, but then after that, it pretty much always falls apart. It always stalls. You get a lot of 3 and outs, a lot of just a few plays, and then you're back punting the ball away again. I mean, I would say it probably starts with the running game, that you don't have that consistent run game to, on first or second down, which they are trying to run the ball more. You don't have the running back who's going to put you in those third and short situations. And then when you actually do get in those third and short situations, you're unable to convert.
I'm so surprised, Jason, that the game wasn't a 40-point victory. I really felt like the Lions, when you match up talent, I understand Cleveland has talent. They have a lot of high draft picks. And when the Lions discussed the game after, they said, look, Cleveland has some talented individuals. They are paid professionals. But the Lions, across the board, you would think, based on the talent, I mean, Matthew Stafford versus Deshaun Kaiser. And one of the things that people on our Twitter page were looking at and going, seriously? If Deshaun Kaiser had not gotten hurt, if Diggs doesn't, go into him and lay him out and crush his ribs, there's a chance that Cleveland could have won that game. Do you think that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I got home, I started watching the second half, and it looked a lot like the first half, that Deshaun Kaiser had that Browns team moving. Our offense was unable to do anything, and then Quandre Diggs smushed Deshaun Kaiser, and I said, thank God, because then Cody Kessler comes in. And he wasn't awful, but he was ineffective. And that's all the Lions really needed. I think that almost gave the team a spark, that the offense kind of woke up. And it was funny. I was changing the kid during when Theo Riddick had his touchdown. But I hear my wife from the living room, and she's like, oh, the Lions scored. And I come in, I see the touchdown. She's like, why don't they just do that every single time? They made that look so easy. And
Go Lions! Yeah!
That's the question, is that sometimes the Lions make it look so easy. Why can't they do that every single time? Now, I know defenses are different for every team, but why did you have to wait until the third quarter to get to that point?
But don't you think, though, the Lions really are one-dimensional, and defenses can kind of scheme to not allow the Lions to run all over the place? I mean, I know that sometimes we might overvalue the talent that the Lions actually have. They have a decent team. They have an above-average team. They can win against the likes of Cleveland and Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers. They should be able this weekend to dominate the Chicago Bears. But similar to what you did, I looked at the game the same way. I said, you know what? It sometimes is okay to kind of check away from the Lions. And I assumed that the Lions were going to destroy Cleveland. I felt like, you know what? I know it's a Sunday game after a Monday night football game, and a lot of times the teams maybe don't show up as well. You have one less day to prepare. The Browns had that extra week to prepare for the Lions. But I sit there and I said, you know what? I'm going to DVR this game. I'm going to do stuff with the wife as well. I went out and hung around and did some stuff and kind of went shopping, kind of seen the grocery store. And so I did the same thing, in that I just kind of peeked into my phone during the course of the Lions game. And before this podcast, I rewatched it and I said, oh my goodness, man. The Lions basically played sloppily. They didn't execute very well in the first half of the game, but the second half they were able to move the football and win the game.
No, I know.
It's good to check. It's good every once in a while in a 16-week season to just kind of back away and don't watch it live, because you and I are the same way. We kind of get really invested. We're really looking forward to the Lions winning, and we want them to perform really well. But I was just angered that the Lions started off behind 10-0 and the way they played, because that really indicates to me when a team comes out and doesn't look ready to go, that they're not listening to the coach, or they're not ready to do their job. I mean, you have to play when the bell whistles. I mean, when the time comes and you're on that field, play one. Sometimes against a real opponent, if you get down 10-0 in the postseason, that might be it. That defense in the playoffs is going to be so good that you might not even be able to come back. So you look at it, and a lot of people are extrapolating and wondering, Can the Lions take the success that they can have this season and parlay it into success in the postseason? And when you look at it and you objectively say what we're watching, a team that has an inconsistent running game, a team that potentially starts slow and they let teams hang around, that's a recipe for disaster when you look at what the team could do in the postseason.
Then I think that, it comes back to Caldwell. If he can't be imaginative enough, I'm not sure if that's a word or not, but if he can't do that, and if he can't exploit teams quicker, and I'm talking about game planning in the first and second quarter, that, hey, running game isn't really working, we'll go back to it here and there just to keep the defense honest. But that our strength is the passing game. You have the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. You have all these weapons and at wide receiver and tight end, and even your running backs and Theo Riddick and Amir Abdullah, that you have all of this, and you just don't utilize it enough. I mean, Golden Tate, Marvin Jones was he was pretty much non-existent yesterday. It was nice to see Kenny Galladay. He had that nice catch and run, but still, I feel like Theo Riddick has been thoroughly underused this season. You see just a lot more Amir Abdullah, and then they'll even go to Dwayne Washington before Theo Riddick, and it makes zero sense. And I know that there's people out there on the radio that they're saying, why are we complaining about this win? Hey, you won it. And I am torn that, yes, I understand that you have to play who's in front of you. I'm not going to complain completely that they won by 2 touchdowns, but there's still reason to be concerned. You can't just say, hey, they won by 2 touchdowns and you're upset. You can't say that, because the reality is there's still so many problems with this offense and defense, if you ask me.
One of the big defensive problems that you saw was Cleveland was able to run the football all over the Detroit Lions. It seemed like the Lions' defensive line was unable to, defeat the Cleveland Browns' offensive line, and the Browns were getting pushed regularly. You saw open holes. You saw the running game for the Browns really do some things, and now you got film for the Bears, who are a quality running team. Now you know basically how to kind of attack the Lions' defense. Were you concerned at all regarding the Lions' really atrocious run defense?
You're talking about Isaiah Crowell. Now, they did a good job of bottling up Duke Johnson, which Duke Johnson, if he would have been the guy who had burned us, that would have worried me even more. But Isaiah Crowell is their lead back. He's not as horrible as everybody seems, but still, he's on the Browns. They're not a great, offense. I think if it would have been an even closer game and the Browns would have been closer, they would have ran him more, and we would have seen an even bigger day for Crowell. I think he only ended up with 90 yards, but still, every time they gave him the ball, he seemed to be getting at least 4 or 5 yards. So that's definitely concerning going up against Chicago, who they have a big bruising running back in Jordan Howard, and then they got that Tariq Cohen, who he's their scat back, and it's definitely worrisome that if the Lions, they don't get up and they make the other team predictable and have to pass the ball, then teams are gonna be able to. They're just gonna be able to run all over us.
Did you read about or see the big coaching mistake that Caldwell made early in the game when he challenged the play, and I think he challenged the spot, and he made a huge blunder. And so you look at Caldwell and you say, okay, he finally owned up to a mistake that he made in terms of when to challenge a play. He owned up to the mistake. But in critical situations, you do feel like, okay, the coaching staff can evolve and get better as well, because we're always asking for the players to get better. We're always asking for Matthew Stafford, the running game, and both offensive line, defensive line to do more. But I feel like at the same time, we also have to look at the coaching. We have to look at the schemes, and you have to really realistically take a look at, okay, is Jim Caldwell progressing? Is he learning on the job? Is he getting better at game managing? There's still a couple mistakes that he makes once or twice during the game that have to be bottled up. I feel like if this pattern continues and you look at Jim Caldwell and you see the mistakes that he continues to make game in and game out, it always seems like there's 1 or 2 issues that kind of pop up with Jim Caldwell and that coaching staff. So I don't really have a lot of confidence in the entire staff. I mean, that defense is quality. They do force turnovers, But at the same time, I was concerned to see that the Cleveland Browns were able to run all over the Detroit Lions. That indicates a real big problem on effort and a real big problem on scheme.
I think the one good thing going forward to next week against the Bears is I think they're going to have to try and beat us with the run because their pass game not that great. I think Mitch Trubisky may be a good quarterback down the line, but they need to get pieces there in Chicago. So I have confidence in our defensive secondary that it's essentially going to be, hey, put 8 in the box and make Mitch Trubisky beat us with his arm, because I think Darius Slay, Glover Quinn, they should be able to cover whoever they're going to throw at us next week.
But we do have to give credit where credit's due. I know a lot of times when we complain and are critical of Stafford when he makes certain calls, the call that he made that resulted in a touchdown to Golden Tate wasn't audible, and it was a quality play, and it was a late audible, and he was able to read the defense and do some things. Now, you can't really give him a ton of credit because you always have to put the caveat, it was versus the Browns, but good for him, good for the Lions, in an effort to continue to evolve, that you recognize who are your weapons. Your weapons are probably Theo Riddick, then Amir Abdullah, then you got Golden Tate, Marvin Jones. Hopefully Kenny Galladay can extend the field and do some things. And then you have to give credit to Eric Ebron, because it could have been a really disastrous situation when the Lions named him captain. But all in all, the boos will stop when Eric Ebron performs. And when he gets a 29-yard touchdown, the crowd cheered him. The crowd was a lot better to him in this contest versus the Browns than they had been. Why? He was targeted. He caught the ball. Now, he did make a critical penalty, a holding call early in the first half, but all in all, Eric Ebron did not hurt the team like he has in weeks past, and Matthew Stafford played a decent game after a rough start.
I give Eric Ebron 0 credit.
Still 0?
I will give him 0 credit until he's gone. He caught a wide open pass.
Good, right?
Great job.
That's really indicative.
You caught a wide open pass. Thank you for doing your job finally.
So you're saying, look, that's your job. Now take it to the next level and catch more passes, get open a lot more. Is that what you're saying? That's the baseline. What you're looking for is more than 2 touchdowns on a season, right? You should have that in a game.
Do your job. Just do it. You were brought here to be this. Ideally, you would be the focus of this offense. That you have Golden Tate for underneath stuff. You have Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay on both sides to stretch the field. And then Eric Ebron is going right down the center. That is your job. That you are exploiting most matchups. You're going to be on a slower linebacker. And if you're not doing that, then you're a failure. Okay. Thank you for once for actually doing your job. Show me next week that you're actually going to keep doing this. And the week after that, and the week after that. I'm not saying that you need to get touchdowns every single game. I'm not asking you to be Rob Gronkowski. I'm asking you to not fail.
Now, moment of silence for former Lion offensive tackle Greg Robinson. Once Taylor Decker was activated, they recognized, okay, this guy's a bust. This guy can't do the job.
Pretty sure Taylor Decker with the torn pectoral muscle probably could have done a better job.
I mean, it didn't cost them all that much. They tried it. I mean, the one thing, though, that kind of set off our Twitter page, and a lot of people debated it, was Ian Rappaport comes out and kind of praises Greg Robinson after he was cut. And he says, like, look, he did an admirable job for what he was brought in to do. And literally all of Detroit kind of said, what are you watching? The dude was a failure. You don't really let go of offensive linemen that can perform. What on earth was Ian Rappaport thinking? Greg Robinson was a terrible pickup. He was terrible. And
for maybe 2 weeks, he was okay.
I think he was less than serviceable. I thought his whole tenure was pretty bad. I mean, what were you calling any positivity that he was doing? I mean, he didn't get Stafford exactly killed, but
did anything. And I'm not defending him the past couple of weeks. I think.
What did Ian Rappaport see? I don't understand at all.
The first couple of games, I think he was at least serviceable. He wasn't, just giving up blind sacks to Stafford. But yes, he just ended up being a failure, which that's where he's been his entire career so far in the NFL.
And thank goodness the Lions quickly recognized, look, it's time to move on and cut him. Taylor Decker's back. Any early thoughts on what you read and what you saw? I mean, he said he was happy to get his feet wet. They replaced him pretty quickly. He didn't play all that much, but at the same time, when Stafford leaves a game healthy, the running backs were able to get chunk plays. I do think the Lions will get a big spark by having Taylor Decker consistently in that lineup.
Definitely. And Taylor Decker being able to really get his feet wet against the Browns and then next week against the Chicago Bears really sets up nicely that he gets back in the game speed. And then the big game that's going to matter, Thanksgiving Day against Minnesota, in conference rival. It's gonna be huge. That's when we're really going to need you, because we're the Vikings. They look pretty solid at this point, and when they do come here for that game, I think it's going to be a little bit more even. Where you got our home field. I still think the Lions are going to take that game.
Oh yeah,
I think the Vikings, their offense is going to come down. I don't think Case Keenum, he's a burning star right now, and I think it's going to flame out at some point. He's going to get hit. He's going to throw some picks, and I think his confidence is going to waver.
From time to time, it's funny when you watch a football game a little bit and you see the highlights. It's nice sometimes to see the blunders of other teams. I mean, the Browns had a scoring opportunity late in the first half. They got the ball basically on the 4 to 5 yard line or wherever close to the end zone. And inexplicably, with no timeouts, the Browns call a QB sneak, which makes no sense at all. I can't believe that call was even thought about to go from the offensive coordinator through the head coach into the headphones. And then you're the quarterback. You're Deshaun Kaiser. Sometimes you just got to nut up and use your balls and check out of that play, no matter what. So they run that play, and nobody's like showing any urgency. They're just kind of strolling around, and all of a sudden, do the Browns get 3 points? No. Do they execute a play after that? No. They just kind of let the clock run out in one of the weirdest plays I think I've seen all season. How do you execute that play that way? I don't understand.
It's just another sign of the Browns' ineptitude.
It's nice to see, though, that someone else other than the Lions.
The Browns have been like this for a while as well, and we see the Lions day in, day out because this is what we live. I think the Browns they've gone through this nearly as long as we do. They've had a season here when Derek Anderson first came on the scene. They thought they had their quarterback, but I feel for them that they don't have their quarterback. That we went through our struggles for a while with Joey Harrington, Mike McMahon, and that whole host of quarterbacks. We finally got Matt Stafford, and he's our franchise quarterback. The Browns, they don't have that, and their whole management system just seems like they don't know what they're doing. They could have drafted a Deshaun Watson in this past draft, and they opted to draft down. They got Deshaun Kaiser, and granted, he may develop into a better quarterback, but right now he looks like he's just the next in the line. I mean, how many? You always see that jersey of where they have the Browns jersey where they have all the different quarterbacks that have played on the back of the jersey. It is. That's the one heartening thing you can always take as a Lions fan, is that at least you're not the Browns.
Exactly. And so before we talk about our thoughts regarding the next matchup versus the Bears, do you want Cleveland to join the club 0-16? Because it looks like at the time of this recording, there's only one team without a victory. San Francisco got off the schneid. They got their first victory with Coach Shanahan. And now you got the Browns. They're defunct. They look terrible. They don't look like they got enough pieces maybe to put together a 60-minute performance where they can win a football game. But for me, I kind of like just being in that club with just the Lions and Tampa Bay. And I think the Lions are the only team that went 0-16 because Tampa Bay went 0-14. So do you want anybody else to kind of take the stench off of the Lions in that season in 2008? For me,
I do.
I do not. I want the Lions to have that stench alone to themselves, because that probably was the onus for them turning the course and redefining their program, because quite embarrassing to have a season where you don't win a single football game. I don't want to put that on anybody, really. Only the Lions deserve it because of what they put the fans through, and they need to have that mark all to themselves. I really do hope that the Browns can at least get one victory. I don't want the Lions to share any company in that dubious mark of having an 0-16 record.
I want nothing to do with being the only 0-16 team. I think we've had this argument before. I welcome anybody else. If you suck that bad, you don't deserve to get that one win. You deserve to be 0-16. And the Browns, if any team out there deserves to be 0-16, the Browns deserve to be 0-16. They're a bad organization. And just looking ahead at the rest of their schedule, it's possible. I could see them
maybe versus Jaguars next.
No, I think the Jaguars are actually not that bad.
That defense is outstanding, right?
Defense, Leonard Fournette's pretty solid.
Who ended up winning that game? Because I just saw the overtime. I saw where, both teams, the Jaguars and the LA Chargers, were back and forth making mistakes, giving each other penalties.
Jaguars ended up winning in that game.
Oh my gosh!
So they're 6-3.
Oh my gosh!
No, I think the only game that I'd really give them a fair shot in winning would be against the Bears. Second to last game.
Christmas Eve.
We could be looking at 0-14.
Wow.
And if they lose that game, it's almost signed, sealed, delivered. They're going 0-16 because they got the Steelers week 17.
Oh my gosh, speaking of that Jaguars game, Joey Bosa made a stupid play. He roughed Blake Bortles. I mean, it was unbelievable. The Chargers had the game in hand, and they got a turnover from Blake Bortles, and Joey Bosa made a huge roughing the passer play that gave the Jaguars extra 15 yards. I saw that kick, and then I had to go, so I couldn't see the remainder. I can't believe what a terrible mistake by the Chargers. But in terms of the Browns, man, Jaguars, Bengals, Chargers, Packers, Ravens. Maybe the Ravens, there's a chance there because when you don't have a prolific offense, then you have a chance potentially if Kaiser kind of advances a little bit more and progresses. You do have Kenny Britt. You do have Isaiah Crowell. Maybe I'll say if I was to look at that schedule, I'd pick the Ravens as their one victory. I think they go 1-15.
I think regardless, they'll probably be looking at the number one pick, which again, I feel bad because there's no real quarterback out there. I think last year was the class that you probably wanted to be in with all the guys that are coming out now, and even the year before that. And right now, I think Sam Darnold from USC is the guy, and he even came out and said that he's looking at his prospects when talking about coming out early, and he said that he's going to look at who has the top picks in the draft, and
if it's the Browns, he's
going to stay at Southern California.
I would as well, because the Browns are probably 5 to 8 years away from even being competitive. I mean, I feel like if you look at the names of the coaches, just Google Cleveland Brown head coaches, the list of names don't impress anybody. It's unbelievable.
I think 8 years is a little far off. I would go anywhere between 3 and 5 years because we're talking about the Cleveland Browns now. Mm-hmm. But to finish that up, at least for me, they have Myles Garrett, who he is a very good defensive end. And we saw with the Detroit Lions when we had Sue, he really kind of turned around our defense. So maybe you got that. And then if Kaiser can come up and become a better quarterback, maybe they go out in the draft and they get a guy like Saquon Barkley, or they can get somebody who can be a playmaker on that offense. 3 to 5 years, I think that they could at least compete, or they'll probably just stay in irrelevancy.
Sporting News has kind of did some digging and has said some things. Now, I don't think that the likelihood of this happening is really, the strong chances are pretty low, but the Sporting News has listed the top 9 picks for the open Tennessee job. And guess whose name showed up on the list?
Bradius Hoke.
No, he's now the interim, and good luck to Tennessee. Finally, I think firing Butch Jones maybe 8 games too late, but current Lions offensive coordinator, Jim Bob Cooter.
Whatever. Go, Jim Bob.
Hey.
Go get your job.
I don't think it's going to happen, but you got to remember, Matthew Stafford kind of has emerged under the tutelage of Jim Bob Cooter, and this is an NFL coach that attended Tennessee, so hey. Keep that in mind as a distant story. I don't think that Jim Bob Cooter is going to be at least in the top 5 of candidates at that job, but he may even earn his first interview. You never know.
At this point, I think Matt Stafford can function with whatever offensive coordinator, because whoever's going to come in, whoever's going to be the offensive coordinator he's going to tailor it around Stafford.
Okay, you say that.
And you know what? I think we may actually function better if we had an offensive coordinator who was a little bit more familiar with the run game, because Jim Bob Cooter is self-admittedly not a run guy.
Okay, we'll keep that under wraps a little bit. Maybe he'll stick around for a long period of time and evolve, and maybe even take over as the next Lions head coach if he has garnered that much respect. All right, this weekend, Lions-Bears. What do you think? Walk away with a W? Can we be confident that the Lions can take advantage of a team in the Bears that has a lot of holes, but they do have a solid running game. They do have that defense. John Fox, from time to time, has given the Lions fits. I mean, last year the Lions struggled and split versus the Bears. The Lions lost at Soldier Field last year.
As this weekend showed, that we can't ever really be comfortable as Lions fans, but I will stick with them. They're going to win this game. They'll walk away and go into Thanksgiving and going into one of their biggest games at 6-4.
No concern on the road that it could be, one of those games.
It'll be
close.
It'll be close.
17-13.
And it might be one of those things where we pile on later on.
I see the Lions winning 21-17. I think it'll be a very close game, 17-17 potentially, or you have a situation where the Lions can maybe put the ball in the red zone consistently, but in the end, it'll shake out to either be 20-17 or 21-17 with a turnover maybe for points on the Lions defensive side.
I'll go back to our initial when we went game by game that I had this team at 3-5 after 8 games. You had them at 4-4, which was correct.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have all the correct games, but whatever. I had them winning the last 8 games of this season.
Oh, winning them all. You had them winning out. A lot of people have said that. There's a chance.
And I know, and it's crazy that people have been actually talking about it. I called it.
If they get to the Ravens and they win, repost that because you did say it. You
got Cleveland, Chicago. I think those are definite wins. I think Minnesota at home, you definitely have the advantage. I think Baltimore, you should win that game too. So now you're then looking at a bad Tampa Bay game, a bad Chicago, an okay Cincinnati team, and then a Green Bay team with maybe Aaron Rodgers is back at this point in Week 17. It's definitely possible.
Okay, it's possible. Very good Lions talk. It's nice to talk about the Lions after a victory. Look, they don't have to play well, but if they're going to, struggle a little bit, it's nice at least to walk away with a W, pull away late, and continue to grow as a team. They have to figure out the running game. They have to figure out run defense. We got to find the missing Ziggy Ansah because the dude has to come and really help this team. He just hasn't looked right since the injury. I think he's a shell of himself. He has to bring it much more week in, week out. The defensive line has to do a lot more. They got to do a lot better job of run defense. And that offense and the Lions have to start the game with positive plays, positive net yardage plays, and don't turn the ball over because against the Browns, you can come back from 10-0. And even at 10-0, I didn't think that the Lions were going to lose. I was just pissed off that you even competed with the Browns. That's what left me pissed off, and that's what I'm going to walk away with this week is I'm pissed off because the Lions even, when you have a team like the Lions versus the Browns, you should expect like a 45-20 game. You should dominate that team, but you didn't. You know who got dominated? Our Spartans, and we'll talk about that next. Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Jason, I want to tell you about our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a great place to host all of our recorded audio. And thank goodness we found Podomatic. Why do we use them? A quality host site that's been around for over a decade. We're able to generate links very quickly so that after you and I debate the Lions and the Spartans and the Wolverines, we're able to edit the podcast and upload it quickly to Podomatic. If you're starting a brand new project, you listen to us and you say, I think I can do that. These idiots can record a podcast. Why can't I? There's a lot of other host sites out there, but Doc and Jock, Jason the King Jarvie, all the other hosts on the network, we're going to recommend Podomatic.com.
Hell yeah. What all the niggas saying? Hell yeah. Just another motherfucking day.
Motor City Sports Rant, Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
It's funny because you're not used to, I can tell, you're not used to coming back to bumpers where there's a bunch of cuss words. It's kind of funny.
Yeah,
what do you think of the song? What do you think about Dr. Dre and the Old and Carnage, the Chronic album?
It's a classic. The Chronic is a classic album, and it always will be.
Yes, it will. Now, Jason, I want to tell you something. Covering Oakland University basketball, I had the opportunity. It was very nice. Obviously, our target demographic is young people from like 18 to 35 because that's where the majority of people do listen to podcasts. And there was a journalism class that was covering the Greg Kampe press conference after the opening game, and a situation happened, and a kid came up and was like, "Dude," because I had the Detroit Sports Podcast hat on. And he said, I listen every week. You guys are great. Thank you so much. And it was so flattering and nice. And I said to myself, you know what? We have to set goals. You know what our goal is now for the next 30 to 60 days is? We got to put our name on a bunch more shit, okay? Because we're so humble. You know, we don't take a lot of videos. I mean, we snap pictures once in a while because we know people like it, that we get a lot of views on it. But at this point in time, why be humble about it? I mean, people know we have great guests. We have a great network. We have a great producer in yourself. We got a lot of good things going for us. And so besides these mic flags and a hat, a couple shirts, I think it's time we start putting our name on a bunch more shit. Don't you think?
Hey, if you can get a size 8 fitted hat, I will take it.
Size 8 fitted hat. They make those? I see 7 3/4, 7.5. I've never seen an 8.
Yeah, because I have a gigantic head. Thanks for calling that out, John.
Do they have size 8 fitted hats?
Yes, they do.
Okay, I'll make you
That's
one.
what I wear.
Okay, I've never really seen you wear a fitted
Jerk.
hat. You and your massive dome.
Small head.
Massive dome over there, size 8. Okay, as long as it don't cost me extra to print the name, I think that's what we got to do. We got to just let people, when you're walking around, tell them loud and proud, I'm part of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Because from time to time, I do hear people say, oh, what do? I podcast. And, I'm surprised that people will still say, I've never heard of you guys, being that we tweet a lot. We air daily broadcasts. We're all over the place. Vito is in every single sporting event. I mean, Michigan, high school events, stuff like that. So I think we just got to kind of maybe even get a nice ride, maybe a big van. I know we don't want to be the Barstool van thing, but maybe we'll get a nice old van we can find cheap and just put Detroit Sports Podcast, let you drive it all around.
I do not want to drive that.
No?
Unless you want to pay for the gas, then yeah, sure.
And then the other flattering,
drive it everywhere.
The other flattering thing was the old Detroit Sports 1051 followed me on Twitter, but over the weekend I put up a random GIF and the Bounce 1051 followed me over the weekend. So I felt a little proud. I'm like, oh, I was going to say, well, maybe that was Jarvie, but I don't think you do the social media over there.
I mean, I have the Twitter access, but
you did not push the button and follow me?
I did not know.
Someone replied, so it was nice to get some validation from the stations. And I really do enjoy kind of getting kind of validated from the stations and things like that. So that was pretty cool.
I probably have an idea who friended you.
All right, sir. When Michigan State went on the road to Columbus, the line came out and people were like, whoa, they were shocked a little bit that it opened up at 14-15. Now, I guess you could be surprised at that line. What shocked me was the line went up, which means all the money that was bet early on was on Ohio State to actually win by more. And so I was offended. I was like, well, this is complete disrespect. I went on the broadcast and said, I think Michigan State can win the game. Oh, egg all over my face. My goodness. Not only was Vegas right, they set the line too low. Ohio State kicked Michigan State's ass.
The largest defeat in Mark D'Antonio's history at Michigan State.
So how are we supposed to properly feel about this devastating loss? Because I got a lot of thoughts about it.
So I know that you're probably going to say, expectations change and we should expect to be in the Big Ten Championship and competing every single year. And I'm going to say, and it may render everything you're going to say after me irrelevant, is that you need to, yes, expectations can change, and we did control our own destiny. We could have made it to the Big Ten Championship. It would be a complete long shot to try and make it into the college football playoff. But even though we controlled our own destiny, we were also playing with house money at this point. Once we beat Michigan, once we beat Penn State, everything after that is essentially gravy. The Ohio State game, I think we probably could have. We had a chance to be in this game, but I think it was a worst case scenario for us that Ohio State they came off of their high point of their season against Penn State and probably coming back and winning that game to just getting housed by Iowa last week. You knew that they were gonna, when they came home, that they just weren't going to let Michigan State in this game, and that's essentially what they did. And I don't think we made a ton of mistakes, but we just couldn't compete. And this is, we talked about it last week when we were talking about what's the peak of Mark D'Antonio. What can he do? What can he get this team to? And this is exactly why Ohio State, the teams like Ohio State and Alabama, they just get the talent, and they have more talented players. And that's exactly what happened in this game.
See, that's why I take the total opposite stance, is that, okay, you can lose the football game, but not cover the spread. Every facet of the football game, offense, defense, special teams, run block, every facet of the game in terms of what you needed to do was subpar. There was really nothing good outside of maybe a couple nice punts. the Michigan State Spartans looked like they didn't belong on the football field. And at this point in time, 11 years into your tenure, you have to be mad at a game like that. I mean, you look at it, and Michigan State didn't fucking show up.
Well, couldn't you save that for Ohio State last week, that they didn't belong in the field with Iowa last week?
I understand you're talking about college kids, but when every facet of the game falls apart, yes, you give credit to Ohio State. They did a lot of good things right. But Michigan State was unprepared. They obviously maybe didn't feel like they belonged. Once they were down 14-0, you don't have to let them go and continue to make turnovers. Fumbling continues. You have situations where every facet of the game plan obviously was not correct. The situations that you thought Michigan State had advantage in, they didn't take advantage of. Once the snowball happened, Michigan State looked like they quit. And it was very frustrating to see them get blown out. Now, if they would have lost the game 21-20 and they go back and forth like they did to Northwestern, were we mad after they lost the game to Northwestern? No, because you competed. But against Ohio State at this point in time, 11 years into your tenure, you can't get your ass kicked by Ohio State, especially with all that on the line. You had an opportunity after a 3-win season to now control your destiny. And if you win the game and you win out, you're going back to Indy, shocking the world.
John,
but you can't get your ass kicked. I'm not saying that they had to win this game. I'm saying you can't roll up there and look like a defunct organization. You can't look like that. If you lose, you have to lose 7 to 10 points. You can't get your ass kicked in Columbus.
John, I'm about to blow your mind right now.
What's that?
Are you ready for this?
Go ahead.
This game's off the top of my head, and I can't believe I figured it out.
What's that?
I figured out what Mark D'Antonio's doing. He's playing the long game, man. He knows we're not going to the college football playoff this year. So he knew, hey, you go in there, you try to play, and if you get housed, you're setting yourself up for next year.
Oh, yeah? Next
Pride
year?
comes before the fall.
Oh, you kind of let them
We're gonna come in next year, and they're gonna be coming into Sparty's house.
We did
and
get,
we're gonna remember
now, Jarvie,
48-3.
We did get 4 ridiculous tweets, okay? On our Twitter page, at Detroit Podcast. You know what they kind of talked about? Some people
same thing that I just said?
No. Some people said, you know what? Michigan State didn't just roll over to Ohio State. They think that Michigan State, some players kind of tanked this game on purpose. Recognizing the line, knowing that potentially there was a lot of money on this game, a lot of people, 4 people.
Donnie Corley's not on the team anymore.
Knowing that there was a lot of money on this game, they think that potentially there was some point shaving going on. That some people got together and did some things because they looked awful. I mean, that touchdown from Mike Weber, it looked like, the Red Sea parted and he was able to do whatever the hell he wanted. So I don't give it any credit, but I never thought of that. When I read it, I'm like, oh, yeah, the thought kind of crossed my mind that they looked bad in a lot of areas. But in the end, what I'm saying to you is this. Yes, expectations do change, but when you play a team like Ohio State, you kind of know the formula. How do you not execute your run game properly? How do you not, pressure JT Barrett? I know you got a turnover, but how do you not pin your ears back and let it rip? I feel like Michigan State didn't believe that they could win the game. And after a 3-win team, I know you have a young team. I know that the belief that you can go on the road to Ohio State and win is really overwhelming, but you've beaten Michigan. The program's beaten Ohio State. You beat Penn State. So to look like you don't belong is really disheartening and discouraging because Michigan State does belong. They do belong to compete in these games. To get housed, the biggest loss in Mark D'Antonio's tenure, unacceptable. You can't have this. You have to be angry. You have to ask yourself, like we asked last week, has this peaked, and can we tolerate this loss any further? We can't tolerate losses like this in your tenure 11 years in. You just can't.
I'm going to stand by. I think I figured it out. I think we're setting ourselves up for the next couple of years because we do have a young team. They're going to remember this loss, and we're going to come back stronger. We're likely to finish this season now. 9-3. We got Maryland and Rutgers left, so we're gonna finish 9-3. We're gonna get a pretty solid bowl game, and next year guys will be a little bit older. We'll have new recruits, and I think we're just gonna come back stronger than ever last year, and we'll be right back competing for the Big Ten East.
We talked about what Michigan State didn't do in terms of their level of competitiveness, their heart, or anything like that. What did Ohio State do that allowed them to house Michigan State? What did they do?
I think just them being able to consistently run the ball, and they ran it with everybody. It wasn't just one guy. It was, they had Mike Weber run for 162 yards on 9 carries. I mean, a gigantic chunk came on that 82-yard touchdown. But you have him with 162 yards, 2 touchdowns. You got J.K. Dobbins, 124 yards. JT Barrett, 55 yards. It's just like, it didn't work out this game. I think they may have come in with a game plan, and it kind of just, Ohio State was better prepared.
I'm going to start calling you Free Pass Jarvie. Oh, my gosh. You give him a free pass for that performance. I was sitting there watching that going, I cannot believe at this point in time Mark D'Antonio brought this team to play like this. It was embarrassing. I feel like when you play a team like Ohio State, you at least got to compete. You at least got to bring your A game.
We said it after Michigan, after they beat Michigan, Penn State. Mark D'Antonio now, he pretty much
compete.
He has a free pass. He's never going to leave this post. He can stay there until he dies.
See, I think this goes into our conversation last week where I think it's tough to expect that a Michigan State team can go undefeated in the Big Ten. I mean, it's too hard. I feel like when you play
for any team,
when you play Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, Ohio State, I mean, we definitely have to value getting to Indy a lot more, but I feel like the East is really super tough, and the Big Ten is misaligned. I feel like all the good teams are on the East, and Wisconsin, if they have average seasons, can get to the Big Ten tournament. I mean, they're there quite a bit, and it's unfortunate that Michigan State and Michigan have this tough road to get to Indy, and it's just not right. I just think that each and every year the East is going to really make it really hard to get to the Final Four and get to Indy. But if that's the road you got to take, you got to do it. But when you face your rival, you got to be able to compete and do some things to get ready to play. I mean, you cannot go to Columbus and lay down like that. It's completely unacceptable 11 years in. And the part that's most concerning is without real changes, this is what's going to happen. I feel like in future years, when you have these losses, they're still going to continue. I mean, the last couple years when you've been destroyed, I mean, you got destroyed last when you played Alabama, a national powerhouse. You didn't show up. You play Ohio State, the other national powerhouse, you get destroyed again. It's a bad look, and if it continues to happen, you got to start asking, okay, is this the point where we now look to the next national coach to come in here and maybe take over for Mark D'Antonio to get us to that national level, if you think your football team is a national program? That's if that thought's there. I feel like Mark D'Antonio, like we said last week, he's peaked. Now, you can continue to roll him out there. I'd be happy. 9-10 wins every year, but in big-time college sports, if you want to go from Michigan State to Alabama, I don't know if D'Antonio's the guy anymore. That thought's crept in my mind.
Again, I'll also say there's only one Alabama. There's only one Ohio State.
But, maybe there's the next Dabo Swinney out there. You got to go find him.
And I think Mark D'Antonio still has the possibility there. There's still the chance that Mark D'Antonio wins a national championship. I think there's a better chance that he wins a national championship than the guy down the road and Jim Harbaugh.
With each 40-point loss that you see that piles up against an Alabama, against a Ohio State, when your team loses by multiple touchdowns and you don't compete in multiple games on the big stage, it leads you to have some skepticism regarding if it can happen.
I'll take the occasional bad loss in what we've had in D'Antonio all these years than what Michigan has right now in Harbaugh, and a guy who just can't seem to get it done.
Okay.
Who I am excited to see, though?
Who you say see?
I'm excited to see Michigan State basketball.
Oh, my goodness. Tuesday night, tonight, when this podcast airs, Michigan State, Duke. And I think there's a realistic opportunity to think Michigan State could win this time around.
And I really want to believe that.
Jarvie, can we win a national title? Are we going to celebrate in East Lansing?
That'd be sweet.
We get to the title game. We go out to East Lansing Bar on me. We'll go.
Hey,
that Monday night, we'll take Monday and Tuesday off.
If they make it to the national championship,
we got to go watch the game no matter what.
I will say yes. I'll go with you to East Lansing. We'll burn down some couches.
Yes, sir.
I'm always concerned about Duke. So there's something. There's something about them.
Well, yeah, because they keep whooping Michigan State's ass in big games. Yeah, of course.
Even this is arguably the best team that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
If ever, really, in my lifetime. And
you got to be concerned a little bit about the guard play. I mean, Cassius Winston, he's got a big task ahead of him. I mean, the forwards are amazing. Michigan State's going to bring in, obviously Miles Bridges is a national, player of the year candidate, and he's doing some great things. But you got to be just a little bit concerned. Can Cassius Winston, in big moments, kind of direct this offense? And remember, when Michigan State plays big games, okay, there's always a couple things that you always notice that kind of bite them in the ass. Turnovers and scoring droughts. This year, I don't see that happening quite a bit, but in big games, when Michigan State gets flustered a little bit, you start seeing a plethora of turnovers, and you start seeing 4-minute scoring droughts. If that happens versus Kentucky or Duke or the big teams this year, you have a tough time, especially in those big games.
There's something about Duke and North Carolina, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's something about, regardless of how good our team is or what Duke or North Carolina are doing, it's something about that we just can't get over that hump. And this would be, it's very early in the season, and I think a loss right here doesn't hurt their season.
Nothing at all.
But I think a win can do so much.
Can skyrocket this maybe to be a team that has maybe 1 or 2 losses entering the tournament, potentially. I mean, this is a good team. There's a lot of good things to talk about with this Michigan State team. They are in the hunt. Many people have them going a long way, and it's nice to see finally. It's really nice to see that Michigan State has Miles Bridges, a guy that the NBA is coveting, a guy that decided to come back for this experience. I think he wanted to get back to the Final Four, maybe even hoist that NCAA trophy, play in a meaningful college basketball game. Oh my God, that'd be great. If Oakland and Michigan State, they're going to play each other in December at Little Caesars Arena. That'd be great if they both made the regional at Little Caesars Arena as well. That'd be awesome.
It'd be awesome.
Good stuff,
Love
right?
to see it. Good stuff.
Yes, sir. Next week, we'll check in a little bit more with the Red Wings and Pistons. We'll force you to watch them, but definitely a lot to talk about regarding football this week. Anything of note to speak of before we get out of here?
Going forward, I mean, it's nerdy, but have you seen the preview for Black Panther?
No.
So
not my kind of films.
It's going to be the next Marvel movie, and watching it on a computer, it looked like a cool movie, but seeing the preview on the big screen, I am pumped for Black Panther. I think it's going to be an awesome movie.
Are you a Netflix guy?
Yeah.
Okay. I asked on our Twitter page, besides Stranger Things, I know that's all the rave. I asked people to kind of, I didn't get a chance to binge watch anything last evening, but yesterday I asked them, like, what are you guys binge watching just from time to time? People put Mindhunter, Justified, Stranger Things. So what's the last thing you have been binge watching?
Last thing I binge watched? It's been a while. I mean, we're always super busy. We're always catching up on the stuff that we're just DVRing. Probably Parks and Rec was the last thing. And it wasn't the first time we watched it. It's something that we always go back to because Parks and Rec it's a classic comedy series.
Okay, I'll let you know if I get the chance to watch some Netflix, but really on TV, I've been sticking to the sports at this point in time, and it was nice to get a little bit away from the Lions live, but I'm looking forward to seeing about this Pistons story because 10-3, lots to talk about, lots of good things I think ahead for the Detroit Pistons. Good podcast, sir.
Indeed, and for John, I'm Jason. This is Motor City Sports Rant. We'll check you out next week. Peace out.
Okay, nice idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.
Ha 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 ha.